Welcome to Big Brother on the Couch. The mind is a mysterious thing. Come journey with us as we unlock it. Now this week, Brian and Amanda kissed. The housemates had cheesy helmets aplenty after travelling through space and time, and then everyone arrived safely back in the present just in time to wave bye-bye to Amy. So that's what happened over the last few days, and tonight we give you the psychological analysis of it. Chicky's dead, Lainey's bitten the dust, but is Bramanda destined to go the same way? We analyse their body language to find out.
I love you so much, man. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we love you too. How has 12 weeks of living in a pressure cooker affected the housemates' minds? We look at the psychology of being institutionalised.
It's like being in a maximum security jail.
Big Brother asked the housemates where they saw themselves in 10 years' time, with all the science behind their answers.
My first day back, I fall from a tree and chop off my head.
And we investigate the psychology of being a twin. Does twin tuition really exist, or is it a load of old twaddle? We discover the facts. OK, now Brian has said that making love to Amanda would be like angels playing on a harp, sitting on a fluffy cloud. And after 8 weeks of trying, he finally made it to first base!
The only girl in him really is Amanda.
Amanda loves Brian. Amanda loves Brian.
Obviously, like, Amanda's the hottest, but no.
Having sex with someone like man, like angels playing on harps and stuff. I love you so much, man. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we love you too.
Do you know it's like that?
I think Amanda is kissing Brian.
Don't worry, we saw it all, Jerry, we saw it all. We sort of heard it all. Sucky, licky things. Ugh. So Brian finally got his girl, but does Amanda feel the same about him? Well, here to tell us what Amanda really thinks of him is behavioural expert Judy James. Judy, I'm beside myself with excitement. You always come on for the best bits, the love bits. OK, so you've analysed tons of the footage to work out whether Amanda really does fancy Brian. So does she fancy him or not?
I'm gonna hold you on that one a little bit. I think the first thing is to look at Amanda's body language signals are actually the most complex in the house.
Right.
She displays in a kind of permanent state of childishness. And
Right.
what that means is it allows her to get very physically intimate with all the men in the house. This could be really misleading. I mean, if you watch her with Liam biting, playing...
So without being sexual, because she's being childlike...
She manages to keep a kind of red light effect so that they, you know, they know when to stop. And that's given a lot of freedom. But, you know, she's a 19-year-old girl. She's an attractive 19-year-old girl. So this could be taken as flirt signals. And what I like is the fact that Brian is the first male to actually investigate this. He's actually taken it a bit further to find out whether she likes him or not. And I've studied the body language to find out whether she does or not.
And does she?
Hang on a minute. Now, I'm going to do this psychologically if it kills me. Number one, I've looked at the most important thing, which is eye gaze.
OK.
Now, as you
So
know,
let's have a look.
intimate eye gazing is very much the first stage in the courtship rituals. And yes, she used a lot of prolonged eye gaze
Yeah, and
with
she's
him.
still looking at him.
She's
and look,
still
she's got
looking.
that face softening you
She
talked
has
about
the look
before.
of love on her face,
She
yeah. And
does.
this went on for almost 15 seconds, which is a long
That is a long time.
even with a cup of tea, you know, that's a long time. Secondly, though, she takes it to the next stage and she does the eye-to-mouth flick. And this is where her eye contact goes from his eyes.
Yeah.
And this is very potent if you watch. But then suddenly her eyes flick down to his mouth.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now, that's almost sizing somebody up to see if you fancy kissing them or not. Or
Yeah.
it could mean spinach in the front teeth, just for anybody gets carried away.
No, but look at her face, that's definitely sizing up for a kiss.
I think definitely.
I'm an eternal optimist.
Be an eternal optimist, because the next thing is really important. The reason why lovers do all this eye gazing is because they're trying to gain the one signal that you cannot mask, and that's pupil dilation. So if somebody's pupils are dilated, that's pretty much a sure sign.
Look at them, they're enormous.
Hers
They are enormous.
dilated.
Because look, I'm looking at you now and you've got light blue eyes and you don't fancy me. That's quite upsetting, because her pupils were absolutely enormous in a similar kind of light, so all dilated.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the light in there. That actually, the bright light in there would actually make them smaller, so when she turns to look at him and they get bigger, that's definitely a sign that she likes him.
Okay.
And then we've got the legs.
OK, talk me through the legs.
We've got the leg fan, which she does. Now, her body language here is very incongruent. The top half is very barriered. She's got the cup of tea held up as a barrier between him and her. But legs and feet are usually very good tellers of how people are really feeling, because we can't act with them so much. And she's doing this little leg fan.
Yeah.
Now, this is part of a courtship ritual. That's why when people dance, they do the sort of go up and come away. All of that movement towards and away is very much part of courtship, and that's what she's doing with her legs. She's nudging him with her legs.
Now, I know some of this audience, I did ask them before, I did a little poll, and the majority of them were disbelievers. They didn't think that Amanda fancied him. So did you have any other signals to help persuade them?
Yes, we've actually got the hand clasp. This will do it if nothing else. If the
hand clasp, everyone, it's the hand clasp.
Now, hand clasping is something that we generally do. A parent will do it with a child.
Like this.
Very much when you're walking. But then you get lovers hand clasping, which is much more intimate. And if you watch here, he puts his hand up, and not only does she clasp his hand, she puts her fingers in between his fingers. She twines her fingers with his.
And
Now,
so is that a very intimate sort of...
it just takes it that little stage further. It's a stage of trust and liking for somebody. Usually lovers hand contact.
OK, just for me, let's have a look at the moment they got it together.
Read.
Okay. I'm frightened.
OK, now there were two separate things happening there that you're going to talk us through, but the first one, that was a very noisy kiss.
I suffered for my art watching this. I watched that duvet for hours, and this little bit of slurping stuff. This was when it obviously becomes more intimate. Everything up until then in terms of body language could have just been innocent and playful, and it wouldn't be any more than she'd done with Liam. But this accelerates it. So the point that they're kissing, they don't kiss for too long under there, but the point that he's taken it to there, that would be very much a tie sign that she would then have the option of coming out under the duvet and saying, no,
How
I'm
long
not
were they
interested.
kissing for?
They weren't kissing for 17 minutes, but they were kissing and then stayed under there for about 17 minutes. So she had a lot of time to say no.
And the lip reading thing, that for you was a big sign of intimacy. Why?
I think psychologically that was very important. They did that a lot more. She was actually teaching him under there to lip read. Now, this is that very intimate, non-verbal tie sign stuff that she normally does with her twin Sam. It's part of the twinness.
And she only does it with Sam, doesn't she?
So she's teaching him, tutoring him and coaching him to be able to have the same type of tie sign reading. It's almost like I'm teaching you to read my mind. So that, for me, perhaps suggested that she was looking for a very close relationship with him.
Now, what about after... I've got such high hopes. You know, Jeffrey Beattie's not here to ruin it for us and say that it's not going to happen. What about afterwards? Because, you know, the kiss happened and everything. Did Amanda regret it afterwards and kind of go, oh, no, no?
Well, no, because the moment when she could have gone, oh, thank God I'm out from under that duvet, she turns around and she gives him a full body hug. She wraps her arms around his neck, body to body.
Non-believers out there, look at that! Look at that! She didn't run.
And this
look,
is
they're very
taking
close.
it absolutely several stages further. I mean, this is important stuff. And also, once they came out of the caravan, again, she could have just run off. But again, we get lots of special signals here. She looks very happy. They come out, they hold hands.
Look,
she
like,
skips.
oh, a new day! I'm so happy! Look, and then I'm going to skip across the lawn, let's hold hands. Oh,
And even
skippity skip!
Don't we all do this, you know? And not only that, she's holding his jacket. Now, women do this kind of stuff. When you've paired off with somebody, you want a bit of their clothing.
When they're not there.
And it creates that. You can smell them around you. And also, on a nasty, it's a kind of trophy thing. And she takes it back into the house as a bit of a trophy.
He's my man.
He's my man.
Yeah. So listen, the romance hasn't kind of properly taken off. This all happened and then it kind of juddered to a halt. Why not? Why hasn't it happened?
I think, it was interesting that Brian actually didn't know who Shakespeare was, because he's almost found himself now in a modern-day Romeo and Juliet in terms of... because he forgot the rest of the house. And the big rule in the Big Brother house is that group dynamics is more important than sex, and group cohesion is more important than
So
sex.
the group comes first.
Absolutely. So what they got when they walked back in is quite pitiful to see in terms of a reception from their two closest people.
OK, shall we... Look, here's Liam and Amanda. So what's happening here?
Well, this is Liam absolutely ignoring her. I mean, she couldn't
And look
try
at her.
more to attract his attention and make him laugh.
I'm over here.
And he's going to carry on making his tabs. He's got his leg out, which is a huge barrier gesture. He completely ignored her. It was almost like, no, if that's what
Is
you
he
want to
jealous?
do... He's not jealous sexually, but I think he's so used to having this flotilla of girls, particularly Amanda, around him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of mourning the fact that he might be losing her, so he's almost
Let's
threatening her.
have a look at him eating his hat, because he quite literally
He eats
then...
his hat, which is a very interesting bit of body language. I mean, this is really what's called a displacement gesture. It's almost taking aggression and anxiety and using it on his hat, so it's almost a self-attack going on here.
And you'd think that possibly her twin would be really happy for her. I mean, her twin's got a boyfriend on the outside world. So what about Sam's reaction? Let's have a look at that.
Now, Sam's reaction was really...
Not great.
Really very scary. Now, her displacement gesture is she's attacking herself with her own hair, and she's really pulling and yanking that hair. Look at the way that she's gazing balefully. It's turning from Brian to Amanda and back again. She's giving them almost the evil eye, and you can actually hear Brian saying at one stage, you know, you're looking at me, don't look at me as though you're going to stab me in my sleep. That's the way she was looking at them. So a huge warning there from the twin.
Will they be accepted by the group? Will they be given the green light? And if they are, will it happen?
It's very difficult. Don't forget we've got history here. I mean, we've got Ziggy and Chanel hit the dust. We've got Liam had to give up his girl for the sake of group cohesion. So in a way, they're going to be slightly resentful if Brian, who's not even an alpha male, has got a woman and they haven't. I think this pressure's going to start getting to them, and it was very noticeable today that when they were talking, they were trying to sort of talk to one another, but Amanda had almost gone back to first base. She was pushing him away slightly, doing her giggly stuff as well. So I'm not really holding out too much hope for them. It could work, but I don't think so.
Any hope for them on the outside, do you think, once they get out of the house?
You know,
very quickly?
I wish there would be, but I'm afraid that Brian lacks self-esteem, and I think he's run out of steam on this one. I don't think he's got the confidence to keep trying.
I was so hopeful.
I hope he
there.
heard
Now
those
I'm
angels.
dashed. Anyway, thank you so much, Judy. Still to come, how living in the Big Brother house can send you cuckoo. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Big Brother on the Couch. Now, look, we might not have a couch on this show, but I'm telling you, it's a lot easier surviving without a couch than being a housemate. I mean, some of the present housemates have spent up to 2 weeks in hiding. That's before they even got into the show, and a further 75 days under the scrutiny and pressure of Big Brother. I mean, no wonder they're all going a little bit bonkers.
So I think I've become institutionalised Big Brother.
I've kind of grown pretty attached to this place.
It's like being in a maximum security jail.
Do you know what? This is what I've learned about this house. You ran morning, you're fed up by the afternoon, and by the evening you just off with each other.
I feel really claustrophobic and I feel like I'm going to lose my mind.
You realise how much this place is home now, don't you?
Eventually we have to go outside in the real world and continue our normal existence.
You don't want to leave here. I mean, really.
Love that music. OK, here to tell us about the effects of being cooped up in a small space for weeks on end is psychiatrist Dr. Az Hakim. Hi, Az.
Hello.
How you doing?
Wonderful. How are you, Davina?
Very, very good, thank you. So what happens to people when they're institutionalised?
Well, 45 years ago, a guy called Irving Goffman wrote his book Asylums, where he described the phenomenon that we observe in people who live in micro-societies removed from the real world. So these might be people in prisons, long-stay hospitals, submarines even. And he described these environments as total institutions. And in our case, the Big Brother house is a total institution.
And it's almost quite unique because there's not even guards or doctors or nurses that come in or...
Exactly.
There's no contact.
No contact, completely removed. And the chronic relationships of these people in these micro-societies or total institutions leads to a number of changes that we see in them. That they become institutionalised, which is their way of adapting or evolving to the oppressive social order that they're in, that they cannot escape from. And we can expect to see what Goffman described as role stripping, which is the stripping away of their independent individual characteristics that they came in with into a more uniform, homogenous, the same way of behaving, the same way of thinking, and in order to comply with the social order which they can't get away from.
So like sheep.
A bit
They're all
like
just following each
prisoner
other.
sheep.
Prisoner sheep. OK, so there have been some really weird coincidences happening in that house, which I'd like you to explain, please.
I'll try my best.
Right, so, for example, on Tuesday we had Jonty and Jerry, you know, they were discussing history, and then they didn't know that a little bit later on they were going to be doing a task on history, that sort of thing. Then also, separate incident, Tuesday, 6:09 p.m, Brian was in the bedroom, he was chatting to Carol, Ziggy and Jerry, and he said this.
I've never lived with any animals. The only animal I've ever had is a rabbit, and what we called Charlie.
You can't throw those things at far rabbits.
And it was 3 years old. No, I got it when I was 3 years old for my 3rd birthday, and then we called it Charlie. And about a week later, I went downstairs into the garden, and it had loads of little rabbits in it.
OK, so unbeknownst to Brian, at exactly the same time, this next clip was what was happening in another part of the house for a task.
There's only one each, so I thought there'll be about 20,000.
Right, we got benches, right?
I can't do it! I just made it cry!
There you go, it's all right.
I know, it's all right, you're doing
You've
really
just
well.
gone through a crisp.
Explain that. Oh, I mustn't point. Explain that as...
I'll try. Well, it could be coincidence, or if we consider that through the process of institutionalisation, the housemates have regressed into this state of dependency on Big Brother,
yes,
interdependency on each other.
Yes.
They're sharing all the experiences every day, the same things, and they, for all intents and purposes, are functioning almost as a unitary organism. And this unitary group organism can be considered to have emerging from it what we can consider a group mind. Maybe a bit of a controversial thing, but a group mind working on behalf of all of them. So the housemates who are in this hyper-attuned state to each other have their internal worlds working in sort of parallel.
But
so
does that mean that they're psychic?
They're not psychic, so
right.
they're not telepathic, but their internal worlds and their minds are working in parallel, working on the same stimuli in their environments. So we can expect some degree of synchronicity of thoughts.
But how did he know that they were out there with the rabbits? How did he know what the task was?
If we consider Big Brother, like I always say, there's 3 systems in place. There's the Big Brother production team, there's the housemates, and there's the viewers, us. So all 3 systems are all sharing the housemates' experiences. And we're all stuck in the routine.
So actually,
we're all institutionalised to a certain degree.
Right.
I mean, they're the most institutionalised because they're stuck in there. We are a bit institutionalised because we know what time the programme's on and all that sort of stuff. And so we're all basing our experiences on their experience. We're all tuned into them.
So subconsciously, we might sort of think somebody in the task team might have seen something that they did in the house that will make them think of a rabbit.
Meanwhile, the same data or thoughts and memories are being processed by the group mind of the housemates, and they come up with rabbits. So it's not all that much of a miracle. OK,
now listen, the other interesting thing is that, you know, the twins, at the beginning of their stay in the Big Brother house, there is no way in a million years that you would have had the twins skinning a rabbit. So what on earth has happened to them?
Yeah, they'd have run a mile, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But the other thing that we see about institutionalisation is that there's an increase in compliance. So what we'd normally expect is at the beginning, early on, inmates, or housemates in our case, will be fighting against the social order and the regime. They'll be battling
resisting, going, I'm not going to do that.
But as time goes on, they realise that actually resistance is futile and that the oppressive social order will win. Well, not only will they get punished in the predictable way, in the punishments, but the punishments may be ostracism by the group or being nominated and being evicted. So the punishments are sort of a complex thing, but yes, punishment comes into it.
So they become compliant and do everything they're asked?
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing, OK.
But also the twins, I mean, although they were sort of yelping and screaming, what they were doing was actually getting on with the task.
They did it!
It's getting stuck in. So it was like token gesture yelping, but actually getting stuck into the task.
OK, now listen, the next strange phenomenon I'd like you to explain is the cheesy dream task. OK, so housemates were asked to eat loads of cheese and then have a nap and try and picture in their heads the dream sequence that Big Brother was creating outside on the lawn. They had no idea what was being done, so here's the dream. OK, so none of them could see what had happened in the garden, and this, amazingly, is what Liam said Big Brother's dream was.
And seeing all these people out on the lawn with white masks and this big pile of white, like, pillowy stuff. Maybe clowns, I don't know.
He's psychic.
He's not
the
psychic.
Cheesy dream helmet worked.
He's not psychic, and the helmet didn't work. What we see there is the production team who had to come together with a pretend dream. So they're basing, you know, what they're trying to sort of retrieve the memories from their experience of Big Brother so far. So what they do is the clown outfit, the Kylie outfit, the hot dog outfit. They're all things that the housemates have worn in tasks so far. So it's not surprising then when Liam is trying to sort of, you know, dig deep in his reservoir of memory of his Big Brother experiences, he comes up with some things that they came up with because they're the same pool of sort of data or memories
the masks,
or experiences.
That was interesting.
I still don't think he's it's not scientific enough.
OK, so, look, there are still 3 weeks left until the final. So what can we expect from the housemates' behaviour from now on?
Well, normally what we'd expect is progressively they'd all become more institutionalised, more uniform, more the same. The newer housemates will take on the older housemates' institutionalised roles. So they're going to fit in. They'll fit in, so they become less alien or ostracised. But Big Brother being Big Brother, we can't expect things to go smoothly. So what we could expect is if there's a shake to the routine or the routine which they're embracing and clinging to in their institutionalised states, if that's pulled from under their feet, then this is going to serve to be a jolt and it's going to feel threatening to their very sort of idea of survival in the institution, and it's probably going to have the effect of a psychosocial earthquake.
Just say that again.
A psychosocial earthquake. It's not nice.
Psychosocial earthquake. And we might be doing a little bit of that this week, you never know. Thank you very much, Az.
Thank you.
Thank you. A psychosocial earthquake. Love that. Still to come, tonight's experiment where we reveal where the housemates see themselves in 10 years' time. China White, prison. See you in a sec. It's experiment time with our resident experiment expert, chartered clinical psychologist, Dr. Cecilia De Felice. Hi, Cecilia.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, what was this week's experiment?
Well, the housemates have been time travelling this week, so we asked them to predict what they would be doing from the moment they left the house for the next 10 years.
And what did you want to show us with this?
Well, I think we're all very curious about the what next question that might be going through the housemates' minds. I mean, who knows what's out there for them, and they're thinking about that all the time. And, you know, the answers that they've given us are not quite what you might expect.
Oh, well, I want to find out what you think in a moment, but let's have a quick look at how they did with it.
In the year 2007, when I left the BB house,
I stepped out to a loud cheer.
I went to the local offie and bought a big bottle of cider.
I took advantage of my short-lived notorious fame by having lots of one-night stands.
My first day back, I fall from a tree and chop off my head.
All the BB housemates got together and released our cheesy Big Brother song, and it went to #1. Woo!
I love Sam. Woo! OK, woo! OK, so you've chosen a few key housemates to discuss, haven't you?
That's right.
So let's kick off with John T.
Lovely
Let's
John
have a
T.
look.
Yeah.
In the year 2007, when I left the Big Brother house, I dealt with all the hype which accompanied the, can't read my writing, the experience for the next 2 months. I also smoothed things out with various people who weren't happy I'd gone in. It was a brilliant time, and one which has stayed with me these 10 years, but it didn't change anything in the long run. I take people around the country using my historical knowledge now. It's great. The bears still live with me in my flat. Friends and family see them. They make no public appearances. I still have no partner.
Is there anything you would like to change or do differently about your future?
I mean, at one point, part of the dream of this, which I think probably isn't terribly likely, is that somebody would spot me on here and see that they speak to people outside, find that I've got historical knowledge and that people enjoy the tours I do and so on, see that I'm quite comfortable being in front of a camera and so on, put the two together and think, why doesn't he do, present history TV programmes or something, which is something I'd absolutely love to do. But I don't think it's terribly likely that anyone's going to look at me kind of burping and do all this kind of thing on this show and think, yeah, we better get him doing a programme about the Tudors and Stuarts as soon as possible.
What is that about? Because he's just written his future, and then you're asking him, was there anything you'd like to change about your future that you've just written? And he did all of that. Why didn't he write that in the first place?
This major change, and I think this is really about his internal turmoil. He doesn't really know how to be himself as he is. It's all about putting himself down, denigrating himself.
Why does he do that?
Well, what he really wants is to have that acknowledgement, that success and that fame. But he then says, look, I do all of these infantile things, and that means that it's not going to happen for me. And I think it's very much about Jonty not being able to have relationships, not being able to be himself as he is. So what he does is he invests all of his emotional energy into his teddies instead of into people. He lavishes attention on them. And he goes on and on about how he doesn't want to have a partner. And I think he protests too much, because I think that's all about him saying, look, I'm desperate for a partner. I just don't know how to go about doing it. So I've got all of these teddies instead. And it's about how he needs to control his objects so that they don't attack him and reject him first. He needs to get in there first.
But he seems so aware that his farting and burping is something that stops him from getting what he wants. So why doesn't he just stop doing it?
Because I think he finds it so difficult to be intimate with people. What he's doing there is he's saying, look, I'm going to fart in your face and you can dislike me for that, but I'm making sure that I'm giving you the reason to dislike me, and you're not just disliking me for who I am.
So if you don't like me for my farting, that's better than you not liking me for me.
Exactly. And so we've also got the infantilizing of himself, which is about making himself like a child. The teddies and the farting, the burping. He's making himself like a little kid, and that's also to ward off any potential attack from aggressors. And I think this journey that he's on in the Big Brother house is perhaps him getting in touch with, he's got really stuck, and he wants to have relationships with people. We see that in the house. And maybe because he's very complex, he's chosen this elaborate and theatrical vehicle of the Big Brother house to try and maybe get that appreciation, that acknowledgement from other people.
Do you think that he'll go on some kind of a journey, or is this pattern of behaviour, is he too stuck?
I think if he'd come into the house earlier, he'd had a better chance of really working through some of his issues.
But he's only got 3 weeks left.
He hasn't got very long, has he? And he's such a sweetie.
Let's take a look at Liam.
Liam.
In the year 2007, when I left the Big Brother house, first of all, walked nervously through the crowd looking for me dad. I found him looking happy and glad to see us. Then on to me 2 weeks of interviews before home. On arriving home, I phoned all my pals and headed down the pub for a laugh. A few weeks later, I ring me old boss and ask for some graft. He says yes, so I start the next day. My first day back, I fall from a tree and chop off my head. Only the good die young. In heaven, God leans over to us and goes, "How, Liam Murray? Are you disappointed?" I say, "Nope. I've had a belter. Take care of me family. Cheers."
Liam, is there anything you would like to change or do differently about your future?
I wouldn't like to die. Yeah, I would like to change that. Hopefully, with me money, I can sort my family out, make things easy at home for them. If I'm left with a bit aside, then I could possibly start my own firm up and call Liam's Trees or Goffy's Trees or something like that.
Wow. Well, what does that tell us about him?
It's an amazing piece, isn't it?
Quite dramatic, because,
Very
in the
dramatic.
first bit he dies, and then when asked if he could change anything, he says he doesn't want to die.
OK, what I think is going on here is that Liam is very in touch with something very vulnerable in himself. He says, look, I've done this amazing thing, I've been in the house, I've won this money, I can go out, I can give the money to my family, I can party with my friends, but actually I've done enough. And this feels very much like he's sacrificing himself. It's as though he's being incredibly altruistic, and he's saying, look, I'll take it so that somebody else doesn't have to. And I think it works on another level as well, which is that he's heard things from the new housemates about how people are received out there. And when we asked him about if he'd do anything differently, it points to, I think, his feelings that if he can get away with not being attacked, with not being criticised, that he might have the potential to have a normal life, a wife, a family, all the things that he really wants, not the sort of fame and celeb stuff, which I don't think he's that interested in.
But that's amazing, isn't it? Because he isn't interested in the fame, celeb stuff at all.
Not
he
at
wants
all.
to start up his own company and go back to his normal life.
Have a normal life with his family close around him. What's really interesting about this is that he's been quite defended in all the psychological experiments. And before he went into this, he said to the other housemates, this is a psychology experiment, don't get too deep, everybody. But what he's shown us here is how vulnerable he is, how altruistic he is, how he is prepared to sacrifice himself for other people. He's a really generous-hearted young man, it really does.
Oh, that's nice, because we've seen, I don't know, she seemed a bit upset about Brian and Amanda getting together, so it's nice to see that.
Yes.
That part of him. OK, finally, let's have a look at Tracy.
Tracy.
In the year 2007, when I left the Big Brother house, I stepped out to a loud cheer and went on to become a member of a comedy TV programme where I was able to meet people and work with some of the TV's most known, funniest people, and have since moved to London, where I'm living on my own and enjoying my life, making people laugh. But I make sure every now and then I still have to go and have it. That's part of me. It's still there, never to leave. End of. That's my life.
Tracy, is there anything you fear about your future that you have not written about?
No. Don't fear nothing. Bring it on.
I mean, she's just unbelievable. She's very confident, isn't she? Sat in that chair, arms open, very open, just bring it on.
This is very much about Tracy's sort of development throughout the house experience. She came in asocial, no social skills whatsoever, no emotional repertoire whatsoever, androgynous. And yet now we're beginning to see her, as every eviction has gone by and she's survived it, growing in confidence. She's even started to get intimate with the other housemates. She's even started to flirt with them. It's like she's getting into her feminine side.
Not the word.
And it's like Tracy is in social rehab by doing the house experience.
Oh, I see. So she's kind of learning how to socialise with normal life, because normally she's just raving.
That's right. And the whole rave scene is about really loud music, possible substance use. And here she's discovering that she can actually connect with people through her humour, through just being Tracy. People have started to comment on how funny she is. I think this is where she takes it out into the world and says, I want to work with TV comedians, I want to do all of that thing. Because I think she wants to maintain that contact through humour. She's really learnt how to relate to people.
And the cheer that she heard last week,
so good about that.
She's feeling very confident about that, or the week before last. And she's now used that in her future. You know, she comes out to a loud cheer.
This is so much about her confidence and her growing as a person in how she can relate to other people. And she wants to hang on to that and take it out there in the world.
Cecilia, thank you so much. Cecilia. Brilliant. So interesting. OK, next up, we find out once and for all whether Sam and Amanda are telepathic. And for the telepathics amongst you, here's the answer. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Big Brother on the Couch. Now, last week, Sam and Amanda finally became one housemate and now qualified to nominate together, be evicted together, and ultimately win together. And they're about to appear in this compilation of clips together.
Amanda loves pink. I'm girly, don't you think? I'm Sam. I'm sweet. The guys think I'm a treat. I love pink. Was it pink? And Sam loves pink. Everybody else now loves pink.
I want the twins as the next Prime Ministers. Life would be just pink and great.
Big fish, little fish, cardboard box.
Twins are not boring. Can I scream a lot?
Behind the facade, there are two very, very intelligent girls.
Name 4 different types of tree.
Christmas tree, elf tree. It's called something like Chillicuddy, Cananet, Fellivog, Dawn. You are me, I am you.
They finish each other's sentences, their conversations.
Oh my God, Dad, good. No, I'm in trouble.
The nation's favourite twins.
They're our favourite twins.
We want to be as one.
So two became one. OK, joining me now to discuss the science of being a twin expert psychologist, Dr. Julia Kovas, and psychologist, Dr. Tomas Chamorro-Premuzic. Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
So, Julia, what can psychology tell us about twins?
Well, on one hand, psychology studies twins to kind of understand how they're special, how they're different from the rest of the population. And in a way they are. So they have slightly different patterns of development, and they're very similar to each other. So if you take monozygotic twins, twins that come from one egg, so they're more similar to each other than any two people in the world. And it's not surprising because they share all of their genes, 100% of their genes.
They're treated in the same way as well.
Exactly. So not only they share all of their genes, they also share a lot of their environments.
Parents.
So the same parents, same socioeconomic status, exactly the same point in the historical moment, in time.
Perhaps because they're so similar, they're more likely to be treated similarly by other people as well.
Exactly. So they're very similar, and that is very interesting for psychology. But on the other hand, twins also can teach us a lot. We study twins in order to understand differences between people generally.
But I bet you've had an amazing time watching the twins in this house, because it's such a unique place to see twins
24/7.
behaving, hanging out 24/7.
It's a unique opportunity for any psychologist.
It's like a natural experiment, 24/7.
See, it's a social experiment. I've been saying this all along. Right, now, over the series, we've been running experiments on the housemates, and we've got the twins' results so that we can analyse them. Now, we did this experiment with a paperclip. And we asked the housemates to list all the different things that you could do with a paperclip and all the things that you couldn't do with a paperclip. And actually, the twins showed a marked difference on the things that you couldn't do with a paperclip. So let's have a look.
You must now say aloud all the things that you can't do with a paperclip.
You can't glue things. Can't do it with a paperclip. Can't eat them. You can't swallow them. You can't use them on big things. You can't. You can't put together dresses with them. You can't put together heavy things with them. I don't know.
You know, I love Sam in that clip.
Yeah, so for the viewers who might not be as trained, Amanda was the one doing better at this.
Right,
we should
so
say
why?
This. Now, the first thing to say is that actually out of 200 questions, and this included questionnaires, tests, all the tests that we administered them, this is one of the few...
Are you talking about your psychometric
our
tests?
psychological tests. This is one of the few cases where there is a trait, in this case creativity, where they differ. And this was one of Cecilia's experiment, which is meant to measure divergent thinking. Now, interestingly, Samantha, who struggled at this task, is the more divergent thinker, so she's the most creative of the two. Why is she struggling? Because she can't find anything, any impossible uses for a paperclip. So everything she's thinking of is a possibility for her. So it means she's lower in latent inhibition, she's less likely to suppress irrelevant information, and that makes her more creative and less down to earth.
So,
one of the key differences
is she embarrassed of saying something in case...
She's also reacting a little bit more anxiously to the task.
Yeah,
she
she
says,
seemed more
I don't
nervous.
like the task.
Yeah.
And that's the second difference, is that Amanda is more emotionally intelligent, more balanced, so more in control of herself than Samantha is.
OK, let's have a look at the drawing experiment, where they were asked to draw what Big Brother represents to them.
That's right.
Thomas,
so we have the
drawings.
drawings that Cecilia ran on them, and they were asked to represent their Big Brother experience. Now, interestingly, we gave these two drawings to an expert who didn't know who the twins were. She had never seen them at all. And the first thing she said is, these are two drawings made by the same person at two different
I mean, they
times.
look exactly the same,
They look
don't
exactly the same, but at the same time, she said, actually, it looks like the bottom drawing was done by the same person at a happier moment in time than the top drawing.
OK, and whose is that then?
And this is Amanda's. And actually, looking at it, we can see that it only emphasizes positive things. Even the use of words, which is a sign of creativity, says trust, exciting, best thing ever, experience, proud here. Whereas if we look at Samantha's, we can see positive things, but also negative things, such as arguments, evictions, boredom. And so it's a slightly less positive drawing. Overall, very similar, but we can say Amanda more emotionally intelligent and more in control of her
Amanda
emotions.
more emotionally intelligent.
Yes, that's right.
OK, so last week during a task, the twins said that they had the same dream during the cheesy dream task.
Yeah.
Let's just have a look.
Did you manage to dream, twins?
Yeah. We had the same dream.
How
is
weird
weird.
that?
It was kind of like a jungle bungalow type of place because it had like with a bouncing castle and it had like big exaggerated like balls and like balloons and like these like animals. It's quite sexy. Maybe a clown or something was there. Yeah, dressed up.
So, Julia, are they telepathic? Are twins telepathic? Is that a sort of special thing or extra intuitive? Or?
Well, actually, all the evidence in favor of telepathy in twins is anecdotal. So actually, there is no evidence, no concrete scientific evidence
They might
for
be
telepathy.
empathic, but not
They
telepathic.
might be empathic. And having the same dream for two people who spend so much time together, who live together, who are very similar both genetically and environmentally,
So
is
similar
not a
to what
big
Az was
surprise.
saying earlier on today, if you're in the same group kind of
Exactly.
Exactly,
behaviour.
they're having similar experiences, they're living in the same place, everything that happened to them, at least in the last 70 plus days, is the same, so they're likely to be more likely to have similar dreams.
Yeah.
OK, so we know, like, Amanda is emotionally more intelligent, and we know that Sam is
It's a little bit more
creatively
unstable and more creative.
more creative.
Yeah.
But who's the more dominant one?
That's
out of the two?
that's the £1 million question, Davina. I mean, it's very, very difficult. There's different views of this.
I'll give you £2.
Oh, no, I said 1 million.
Yes, but you know,
All right, you're quite a tough negotiator. Okay, so we've been through a lot of footage, and actually the thing to say is that if there is an imbalance in dominance, it's very subtle and very, very mild.
Right.
From the test, Amanda would appear to be more dominant, at least in the house, because she's more in control of herself, so that makes her more likely to dominate the other. We also found relevant and key footage at very important moments where we can see that Amanda is taking the initiative or approving big, big decisions that are being made, and we can look at that now, Davina.
Why don't we look at
Okay.
that now, Thomas?
Please could you give the name of your first nomination and explain your reasons for this nomination?
Do you want me to say my two I'd say and then you say your two? I was going to say Jonty and Corey. I was going to do that as well. Okay, well, we'll do that then.
If you decide to be treated as one housemate, you will nominate together, be evicted together, and should you win, you will share winner's status.
I'm a bit nervous. It's evil. Is it? Oh. Well, everyone think that if the one, then it's like we're having secret discussions about people because of the nominations. No, silly. No, we're not like that. Oh, no, they won't, will they? Two definitely won't be one then. 100%. 100% we do. Don't we? Of course.
God, it's amazing when you know what you're looking for.
When you know what you're looking for, you normally find it, but I think it's a good example of Amanda taking the lead. I don't know if you agree. Now, it's interesting that her mother said Samantha is the more dominant of both of them.
But why?
Yeah, that's the problem. She said that it was because of birth order effects, and Samantha was born a little bit earlier than Amanda, but only 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So there is such a thing in twin studies as birth order effect, because twins that are born later, especially if there is a big gap between the births, if there is some kind of obstetric complication like during birth,
so the mother can bond with
sometimes the second born twin stays in the hospital longer, and so these can produce cascading effects that can affect the.
And not 5 minutes, but not 5 minutes difference.
No, not 5 minutes difference.
No.
And the mother, could a mother put that onto a child?
It does happen a lot. Actually, the parents of twins do create, at least psychologically in their heads, a lot of the time differences that are not even there, not perceived by anybody else.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But it hasn't worked with these two. In fact, it's gone the opposite way.
I think at least in the house, Amanda is slightly more dominant.
And also, we saw that the other day when Amanda and Sam were in the diary room.
Talking about Brian.
Yeah, and Sam went, you really fancy Brian, don't you? And the look that Amanda gave her, like, don't talk about it in here.
Yes,
she's like,
censoring her. A lot of the time, Samantha talks first, but Amanda is the one who edits, basically, and says that's fine or not.
Now, Julia, what kind of impact do you think Amanda's relationship with Brian will have on the twins as a unit?
Well, having a relationship outside the twinship is can be a problem for twins because they spend so much time together, they're so bonded that this entrance into the relationship of a third person can produce a lot of stress, and it does happen. So,
and I mean, on the outside, Sam's got a boyfriend, but obviously he's not in the house.
Exactly.
So in the house, they've been thick as thieves.
And I think we've seen Samantha skeptical of the relationship. I mean, she hasn't seemed to look, she hasn't seemed to approve too much of that relationship. I think she sort of took a step back, but she's not very happy with it, and I think that might stop Amanda from carrying on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Julia and Tomas.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for tonight. Join me here, same time, same place, same channel, next week. But next on 4, it's Big Brother. Do you know what? I thoroughly recommend it. Good night.
She's not wrong. And Brian plucks up the courage to ask Amanda a very important question in just a sec.